Those are the limitations of the Indian government. They cannot talk of Hindu phobia. They will only talk about religious phobia. But as far as US Congress is concerned, they have been talking of only the Islamic phobia. So you can imagine, why am I bringing this to our context of discussion is that how big is the challenge? And I would say we are fortunate and we should be grateful to God that we are given an intellectual ability, we are given an experience with which we should come forward and take a lead and serve the community. So that's the kind of objective with which we have all been meeting here every alternate week. There's a lot of cooperation that we are getting, and I'm sure that many of you have moved a few steps forward in that direction. Uh, at least 5, 6 people have written and published already. And I'm so sure that this initiative which we have started is going to pick up momentum, and you are not meeting us only for a few days or a few sessions. You are the ambassadors. You are the people who are going to take this mission to every part of the network that you have been associated with. Now, having said this, I'd like to just check on this Sudhir Agrawal ji. Is Sudhir ji, are you there? Oh, okay. Maybe mute, may not be, no problem. Let's continue our discussion. I'm in touch with different people from this group, and I'm personally glad that I remain awake and active the whole of the week because there is some question coming, some need for assistance coming, and I have been in touch with creately.in time to time basically to get your emails verified and giving you the ability to self-publish. And some of you have already published, but today Beena ji also informed he is also able to publish in Creatively. Uh, as far as the Hindu Heritage Foundation of America is concerned, we have, our own portal. That portal will be active in about a week's time. So possibly you will be able to publish not only on the other portals where I am directing you to publish, but you will also have an in-house portal where you will be able to publish. I believe Rajiv ji is there and he's listening me, and I think we depend on Rajiv ji for that. No? Okay, now when I was discussing with uh, Agrawal ji, Sudhir Agrawal ji, there came a very critical point for discussion, and I want to share that with you. And in the agenda, I have titled it as New Focus Areas. You all know very well that on the first day when we met, we had circulated a list of about 37, 38 topics which concern Hindu heritage, and we urged that as you go forward, you may pick up any of these topics of your interest and choice, and please publish around that. You have done that. The question that came to our mind when Sudhir ji and myself were discussing about our program, the point that turned up was that, the greatest problem that we have, of course, we have the misinformation, we have the vested interest, we have the political pulls and pushes, all that we know. But on ground, the number one problem is that our younger generation is being taught wrong history. At your age and my age, we become discretionary. From our experience, we are able to see that what discount factor to apply. Young child who's like 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, who's in like a 6th grader or 7th grader or 8th grader, he's not discretionary and he should not be discretionary at that age. And the system of education, which is, I would say, followed all over the world. God is kind to me. I have worked in Asia, I have worked in the Middle East, I'm now working in North America. I can say that the system of education which is across the globe is called convergence, not divergence. We do talk about divergence, we do talk about disagreements, we do talk about challenges, no? But at the end of the day, the grade is given to those people, good grades are given to those people who converge to what their teacher has said or what the textbook says. No? In the context of this, you will be able to appreciate quickly that what is published in the history book, which is taught to the 6th standard, 7th standard, and 8th standard in India, it's a time to review that. We very often complain that what is the government doing? We all know where the problem is. And we always look up to the government of India that they will be able to change that textbook and all that. No denying the fact the government should do it. There is no denying and there is no undermining the need at the level of the government. But we should know that has been piled up over 70 years cannot be cleaned up in 5 years and 10 years even. Again, Dr. Sudhir Agrawal, he brought a very good point. Fortunately, he has been director of the institutes and I have been director of the institutes in education. And he made a very significant point. He said, Dr. Parashar, let's recall. Suppose there is a bad element in your staff and you want to take an action. Would you be able to take an action unilaterally? Or when you get a complaint, you are more comfortable to take an action. Though, of course, you always want to take an action, but taking an action unilaterally, you will find that there will be resistance, there will be strike, there will be talk, there will be media, there will be all kind of things. But as against this, if another colleague or staff or employee gives a complaint about the misconduct, misinformation, misbehavior of somebody, you are equipped to take an action. And this analogy he used saying that it is incumbent upon us that we help the government to take an action. So it is therefore that the complaint should go from us. We have to do something. We have not to just say that the government will do something. Government will do something. But there is an important part that we have to do. And what that important part is, as we have been discussing in this program, you would recall my first session. But I had given you a lot of insights about that when you publish, how cover yourself, how you can hit without getting a hit in return. I had told you that those of you who are starting their interest in writing at this stage, the easiest thing to do is called book review. The easiest thing to do is called the book review. I know Mr. Bhargav must be there. He is doing a book review and I think he'll be able to share his experience. Of course, the challenge is that the book are always voluminous. There are a big number of pages, so you need time to go through it before you can really write a good review about it. Nevertheless, why I say easiest is that somebody's opinion is already published and printed. And you have a right to your own perspective. You are not the slave of the author. Within your own prerogative, based on your personal experience, you have every right. And let me tell you, there is no violation of freedom of expression when you do an academic review. You can just tear it up. I mean, I'm just saying metaphorically, no. You can just tear it up and nobody is going to challenge you. Because it is the right of the critical reviewer to express what he or she looks into that. With these words said, let me get to the point of action which I want to suggest. And that is, in our team, if you think what I'm talking makes sense, let's on priority focus on reviewing the history books used in the CBSE in India in the 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. NCERT. Oh, that is NCERT. I'm corrected. Thank you very much. It's NCERT. Of course, these history books are taught at the state level also, and they can differ. So what we can do is that we should first start with reviewing the history books given to the 6th and 8th grade students by NCRT. I tell you, this review project has to expand and go on much wider. There are other systems of education. There are system of education at the state level. You should be able to put your hand each one of them one by one. But one should start with the NCRT. And as Sudhirji told me, he said, Doctor, it is doable, it is easy because all these books are online available now. Maybe because of COVID-19, I don't know, but I was given this understanding by Sudhirji that this is a project which is doable. Because to review something, you first of all like to lay your hand on that book, and it is easy. Placing an order, getting it by post, looking up in the page by page, that's much more cumbersome compared to if you have got an access online. And as he told me, of course, I'll open this discussion to you. I'd like to hear your views that is it doable? Is there any of you who will be interested specifically joining on this? I like to stop here. I've taken almost 15 minutes and I open this discussion for 15 minutes with you by by I say 8 a.m. India time. We will have our guest speaker, Mr. Aryan Parashar, and he'll be sharing his own experiences. So I just stop here and wait to hear your opinion, what your thoughts are. You can, I mean, there are two options. If you want to put in the chat box, you can put in the chat box. If you want to unmute yourself and speak out, please do that. It's your time.
Good evening, Dr. Parashar. I'm sorry, I'm not able to. This is Sudhir Agrawal here. I was able to listen, participate, but I wasn't able to provide a video feed. I think this is an excellent suggestion that we should start out with history books for 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And the reason I say that, because that's the time when our mind is very malleable, and that's the time, it's very impressionable, and then we can really mold our future generations to learn the right history. There are NCRT books. Now, at the state level, there are books which are followed, and those books, I have to check whether they are available in the PDF format or not. But definitely, this is a worthwhile project. If we really want to make a difference, we need to focus on our youth. They need to know how rich our Hindu culture was, or heritage was, or religion. Unfortunately, that part is missing. Let's not have a blame game here. That doesn't solve anything. We need to bring everybody into our fold. Because the moment you start blaming me for my deeds, irrespective why did I do it, you're going to lose me out. So let's just correct it without playing the politics here. And we need to go to the right people, which means, for example, in UP, at least I can tell you, who are going to make a difference is the director of education. So we need to write to them, and constantly we need to write to them. We need to write to the principal. It does make a difference. I think you were saying about my experience as director, and I can just say very briefly, when I used to be in my office, I knew what the problem was. I knew which student had done things in the institute, who is at fault. But unilaterally, I just couldn't take a decision because then I would be seen, doing partiality with somebody. So I need to have a complaint at that time. Unless there is a complaint, I can't even open an inquiry. So we need to write to the people and follow it up. It will take some time because there is a big lethargy which is built into the system. But we can make a difference, and I think your proposal is excellent. Let's build a team here. It's a team effort.
All right. Thank you so much. You may have seen already in the chat box. I read that Miss Pooja, she has expressed that it's a very good idea, and she has offered her services. She said that I will do it. So uh, I'm glad that the response so far I'm hearing is that this is the right direction in which we should work as a team. And obviously, I mean, how should we should go about it? It's a matter of detail. Uh, I mean, reaching out to the people who are sitting in the decision making, that is one element. But I would rather say that again, rather than seeking the cooperation of all those people and spending time with them, we may start with something that we can do. And what we can do is we can review and we can write about it, that how right and wrong it is known. So the whole idea is that, and it's not a question of blame game, Sanjeev, if I picked up your name correctly, it's not a blame game. It's a question of matter of fact. And I would say that as far as matter of fact is concerned, we should not, I would say, hesitate to speak out what the facts are. So absolutely, there is no reason to give I mean, bad name to somebody who is the director in NCRT. He or she may have his or her own limitations. But what we should do is that we should show the mirror. We should show where is the problem now. And that will be done when some of us join. I'm so glad that Pooja ji has offered herself already to work on this project. And I'm expecting that we will have some, at least say 5, 6 people who will be on this project, because you need to really motivate each other. And it's good to ask, hey, what's going on with you? Why are you sleeping? Why are you not getting up? The things are not moving. So I will now take a pause again, and I would say that who of you would like to work on this project?
Sorry I missed your earlier portion because I am in a group where I have to chant Om Priyam Priyajame for 32. It was my duty today. So I just went away for 5, 10 minutes. So I missed the project. What is the project about? Can you please explain me?
Sure. And I will take the help of someone. Will any of you please explain what the project that we are talking? Sanjeev, would you do it?
So this is regarding NCRT book review for 6th, 7th, 8th grader, and this is you are referring for Bharat, right, in India, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I would like to take on the same topic, but can we apply the same theme here in the US? We tried 3, 4 years back, at least in California. I mentioned during our first call. But it did not go through the next level, in a sense, to the district level, individual school districts, and so on. So that's where we have a challenge, at least, because there are so many publishers, for example, National Geography, then McGraw-Hill, then there are a couple of big publishers. They don't want to budge. So
Can I,
my question is, do we have some sort of toolkit or yeah
can I interrupt you? Can I
yeah
interrupt?
sorry, good.
Because the question Binaji had was that what's the project that we are talking about here? Uh, when you have much more information about what the experience in US is, I personally also have got some experience which we'll share as the moment comes. But to answer directly to Binaji's question, what are the projects? What we are saying, Binaji, here is that if we want to do a good service to our community, we should start working on the younger generation who are like in the 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. We all know that the history that is taught in the 6th standard, 7th standard, 8th standard in India, it has got so much of information. I mean, India is era of only 300 years or 200 years. India is not 300 and 200 years. So there is a need to correct that understanding. And to do that, let's not look to the government that they will do everything. What are we doing? We are all educated people. We are all, by God's grace, fairly well placed. We have seen the world from all angles. So what are we doing? We therefore wish that this group of people, while you know 37, 38 topics that we had shared on day one, you may pick up anything out of that and write about the Hindu heritage. But a challenge at the table at the moment is a history which is being taught is wrong, is not the history that should have been taught to our younger generation. And I would say that whatever is injected into those people at the age of 11, 12, 13, that stays with them for years and years and all their life. No. Let's think about ourselves. No. I'm not going to speak the exactly words which I have been taught, but that is where I have been still reciting those words and still living on that. It's only later on in my life that I have realized that, come on, I mean, I was actually being told something which are not the truth, are not the facts. No. So, Binaji, what we want is we want people who can join on a project whose job will be to review the 6th, 7th, and 8th standard history books prepared by the NCERT to begin with. Then this project can be expanded further where we can cover other exam systems and other states in this.
Question that do we have any toolkit? And otherwise, another question is that those who are writing these books, because I'm from teaching and I used to talk to a lot of publishers and all about it. And I was a principal of a school too. So that is the interest or subject of my interest. That's okay. But the only thing is that these books are there for years together, and the persons who have written, they written under any pressure, or with whatever information they had, they made it on that.
You have been a principal yourself, you have been teaching, you must have personal experience, no? In fact, we can be guided by your personal experience, no?
I was very selective about the books, but I have to, because it was not central schools where you have to have all those prescribed books. You couldn't choose and your own books too, which had some better this thing. But history is history. Whatever is written, they all copy each other's history. Then they do that, right? Whatever history is in India, we are studying for years together, wrong things.
Okay, and you raised one point of toolkit. Toolkit is, we are intelligent people, we are experienced people. I'm saying your toolkit is pick up a book and review it. Read it yourself. But what we are saying here on the call, it's a bad history, it is this gap, it is that gap. Write it out. Publish it so that it becomes referable. No? So there is no need to look up for what is called the very esoteric kind of toolkit. No, I would simply say do what you can do, and the easiest thing that we can do is review a book. Sanjeevji, when you are talking about in US, let's not mix up US. I am aware there are people who have gone even to the court of law to fight this. And this is going on for years. It's not for 1, 2, 3 years. No. I know personally people who have make a mission of their life to challenge what is being taught. No. I, for one, myself had written a note to Loudoun County school system in Virginia, where what they're teaching to the 6th standard is actually something make believe. No, that Aryans and cow herds and those kind of things. No. Now, my point is that we protested, we sent in writing, that should be like a flood. People, many of us, who consider ourselves very distinguished, experienced, educated, we have to display that distinction. And I think the best way to register your opinion, your disagreement is to write, write, and write. And don't worry about where it's published, because thanks to Google and thanks to internet, nothing dies now. Even if you publish in a very small corner of the world, still it is accessible to all over the world. So therefore, I would say that I have got another 2-3 minutes before we will get our guest speaker. I will defer my question to the end of the interaction, because the interaction will be for about 30 to 40 minutes. And I'm leaving you with the question that who of you would like to join this project? And I'll try to take your opinion and your choice, as I said, that from in 40 minutes from now. So with these words, I thank you very much, and I do like the enthusiasm with which we have participated, and in the process we are now knowing each other a little more. And of course, the basic spirit has got to be, let me do what I can do. And possibly when we join the hands, you know that together we are better. So with these words, let me check out. Mr. Aryan Parashar ji, are you there? I have received a message from him that he has some issues of his laptop, but his choice is that will he present the slide deck, or will he directly speak to us. So I have given him an option that we'll be happy if you directly speak to us. There is no need for the slide deck if the system is not supporting. Let me check out. Hello. Yes, sir, you can directly speak. There is no need for the slide deck.
Actually, I prepared the whole thing with the PowerPoint, and just at the last moment, I don't know what has happened. It refuses to switch on. I think its adapter is gone.
No, I would say let that be a storytelling. You just speak out. I mean, when did you start? I would say writing.
Yeah, please unmute yourself.
Okay, my friends, you have already heard the kind of communication I was having with our guest speaker. It does happen. Technology has great advantage, but it is obstinate also sometimes. No? So it will what you want. So he said that he had done a very extensive presentation for us, but he's disappointed now that his laptop is not helping and he's trying to come over the phone. And as you heard, I told him that take your time, and once you are live, you can just tell us that I'm ready to talk to us. And we need a storytelling session. We want your experience. It is absolutely nothing more that we can expect. Okay, we can use another 5 minutes that we have got now while Mr. Aryan Parashar is preparing himself to walk into this, and I can reopen my question. My question was that I'm glad, I think not most of us, all of us have appreciated this idea of reviewing the history books, writing about it. That means whatever we think about it, we are able to put in writing so that it is referable. And then we can always forward to the Ministry of Education that in Creately, these are the 6 articles which have been published, and this is for your consideration. So,
But Mr. Parashar, don't we need facts and figures like we need something to prove our facts that naturally, I mean, these from where this history has been replaced and when it has been replaced and who were the people behind it. We have to go through everything, right?
no, I would say that to say that do we not need the alternative correct history? Yes, we need that because that is exactly what we want to project. So it's not an easy job. It is not that just we get up and start doing it. No, this will need lot of referencing.
Lot of research, references and research.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a question of research. So,
Can
I
I
would say,
please
yeah,
can I please say something? I
yeah,
think there
sure.
are some low hanging fruits. For example, uh, we can definitely emphasize the duration of the events. Let's talk about, let's say, Mughal Empire. Now, how many years did it last? Uh, let's say 400 years or something like that. Now, if we are devoting half of the book to those emperors, then we are just talking about a very small segment of time. So I think there are things like that that we can point out, that our history is not to be seen by a microscope where that timeline is only few hundred years or starting, let's say, from 1100. It goes beyond that, well beyond that. So why don't we talk about that period, and then put all these events in a time sequence manner? So that doesn't need much research. You need research to come with the facts. But when you look at the timeline of these events, I think we can definitely say, at least give importance to the people who participated in the freedom movement. What happened to all those heroes that we don't even know about them? And they are there in local books, may not be in the main books. So definitely we can talk about those things. So what about the treatment of women in different societies or different religions? That's kind of easy to talk about some of the things which we find are not acceptable in today's world. What about the treatment of minorities? So I think some of the low-hanging fruits we can definitely work on, and it does need a lot of research, and there'll be a lot of resistance from these historians. I did have a chance to talk to one of the historians, and he said that you are sitting in US telling me all this. I mean, that's how he was. He said, you don't know anything about it. That's what basically he said. I said, yes, I'm not a student of history. I'm an engineering student, but I can analyze events. We do have that capability of analyzing events. And the way you have written, he has written tons of books. I don't agree with those books, the analysis that you have presented. As a researcher, I don't. So there'll be definitely some resistance.
Very good. I think that's a very positive message. And let me say that this meeting is not to discuss the strategy, how we'll go about it. Here, we are just trying to understand what is the kind of acceptability of this kind of activity, this project. After that, those of you who will be inclined to join, they will form into a project team. And whatever that number, 2, 3, 4, whatever it becomes, we will leave it to them to deliberate on this and let us know that this is the kind of strategy that they're going to adopt. But that strategy will also be shared with more people, and if that strategy will enthusiasm a few people, well, they can join it. So absolutely, it's a voluntary effort, and the spirit is that let me do what I can do. And it's not easy task, because criticizing in one line is the easiest thing that anybody can do it. I tell you that I have been sometime advising the government how to manage the protests. No? And I think the best trick that you have got to manage the protest is just ask one question. Well, like these were the agricultural laws. For that matter, in this country, we have seen the banking laws. No? My field is more finance and banking, so my understanding is of that field. And when the people will go and protest to the Federal Reserve that this kind of law has come, this is bad for the consumer, this is bad for the banks, I say that you just ask them which part of the law you want to get replaced. And there will be a silence, almost, I would say, frigid silence. Nobody will speak about, because people don't do homework. It's easy to say, well, these are the shortcomings, these are difficulties. No, but if you ask them to pinpoint, there the whole matter ends. And I like this word, low-hanging fruit. Well, definitely, I would say that the team which will be formed, they will be conscious of the approach, and I think this is a very positive way to begin something. Let you taste some success, and then you like to go for the bigger kill. But I mean, if we keep on debating, anyway, I'm a professor, so please, I have a great temptation to speak. That's why I visited China, and one of the guy, my professor friend, he told me, he said that, we were far behind India, but India is now left far behind. And he said, do you know what the reason is? I said, come on, I should know the reasons. What do you want to say? He says, I want to say that in China, to catch the mouse, we don't debate, is it the white cat or the black cat? We send both the cats, and whichever cat gets more mouse is a good cat. Whereas in your country, you keep on debating in the committees and commissions that should be white cat or should be black cat. No. So I think the lesson I learned from him was that get started, start walking, do fall, do get up, do learn in the process, but have that spirit that we will do it. No? So it's time for me to again check on Aryan. Aryan Parashar ji, is your phone now working? The guy is in Chandigarh. So
in other words, whatever we are talking about right now, we can make our presentation on that also point, right? Whatever we are talking about, to like, it's a step we want to change the history or NCRT books, we have to suggest them, right?
Yes. I think what we are talking today for our memory, we should make a small presentation about the minutes, the decisions that are emerging out of our discussion today. I 100% agree with that. All right.
I can volunteer myself to come with half a page, very short summary of what we discuss here, and give it to everybody, and then we can give our input.
Okay. One request: when you say "I can," please name yourself so that all of us know that.
Oh, this is Sudhi Agrawal. This is something that I can definitely initiate, but I need input from everybody. So what I will do is I will put some points in the bullet format, not necessarily in PowerPoint, but in a text format. If everybody has PowerPoint program installed on their computer, I can do that too. But let's start with a simple bullet format. and then go through first or two iterations, and then we can enhance the presentation, and then we can come up with a strategy in terms of what we should be doing.
And if I understand so far, there are three names which have been clearly identified as they have expressed and committed. One is Miss Pooja, second is Sanjeev ji, and third is Sudhir Agrawal ji. If there is any more member who want to loudly commit, clearly commit, is the time for you.
I will
Dr.
put my
Parashar, this
effort.
is Vineet here.
Beautiful. So we have Beena ji also in this group.
Dr. Parashar, this is Vineet here. Please count me in.
Oh, beautiful.
You can add my name. My name is Siva Sitaraman.
Siva Sitaram. Okay.
I have a request, here people don't show them, put their video on in our, whatever we do, it is a compulsory to put a video on because we cannot put the name and the faces together. I don't know what is the psychology behind it. I want to write an article on that. This happens many times and then people don't, I don't know why. Like, I'm sure you guys are very beautiful souls. That's why you're here to do some changes.
Yeah, the whole problem is we don't want that. There should be some filmmaker who should come and make an offer to us and say that, come on, you join my film. So we don't want to show our face. That's the reason.
We make our own films, by our writing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm able to now see 6 names. And I would say that, I'll rather say that let's hold back. 6 is, okay. Maybe I have mixed Sanjeev ji with Sudhir ji. Okay. I see it's Sanjeev ji. And does it mean there are 2 Sanjeev or only 1 Sanjeev?
Sanjeev here from Bay Area. I think you put my name there. I don't know. Is there another Sanjeev? I was talking about the local issues.
What is your last name that appeared?
Bhattavadekar.
Yeah, then there is only 1 Sanjeev we have so far.
Okay.
Yeah. So by now we have got Panj Pyaras, no? There are 5 names that we have as of now. Beena ji, Pooja ji, Sanjeev ji, Vineet ji, and Sivaraman ji. And I would say, Sanjeev ji, you have taken upon yourself that you will make a summary of the discussion that we have. And then I would,
Actually, that is
you
Sudhir.
try to contact these 4 or 5 people with you, have brainstorming, and then get back to us in the group that, okay, this is what we propose, this is how we want to go. And if there is anyone else who wants to join, is welcome. It is as simple as that. Okay. And I do believe Sudhir is not here today, but he is very, very enthusiastic about this. So I hope.
No, Dr. Parashar, I'm here. In fact, I've been speaking. Probably you don't see my name over there on your screen. And it is me who volunteered to take charge of this.
Okay. Forgive me the confusion that I am causing here. So Sudhir is there, Sanjeev is there, Vineet is there, Siva is there, Pooja ji is there, and Beena ji is there. These are the 6 people. The challenge is for you, Sanjeev. I don't know whether I am able to capture the whole thing, but I hope you are able to capture what we are talking. And of course, we can get back to each other for any additional information that we have at the level of each individual that we are. All right. I know this guy from Chandigarh looks like lost. He's a great traveler. He is normally in his car. So he drives from Chandigarh to Kanyakumari and Chandigarh to the other end of that country. I hope he is off the car today. Aryan Parashar ji, are you able to hear us? Are you ready to?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's your turn, my friend. We are eagerly waiting.
Sorry, there was such a mishap. Uh, Hello, friends. My name is Aryan Parashar. Uh, I'm 72 years old. I have qualifications in physics, economics, and law. I worked as a lecturer in physics for 5 years. Thereafter, I joined the Indian Administrative Service. And after retirement, I was chairman of the Haryana Electricity Regulatory Commission. But none of these is relevant really for the purpose for which we are here today. I have a side interest in ancient history, particularly the ancient history of India and of other continents insofar as it relates to the ancient history of India. My own feeling is that the humanity has never been isolated from each other wherever they have lived, and they have been in contact, and sometimes accidentally, sometimes by design, and mainly for trade. Uh, I don't think adventure was such a thing, but mainly because of trade, they have been in contact with each other. So I developed an interest in finding whether certain characteristics are quite similar in the ancient cultures of various continents. My interest arose from a very different reason. I found during my studies that in the 18th century and the first half of the 19th century, the Western writers were really going gaga over Indian culture and Indian history. And they used to heap praises on India. And suddenly, after 1857, they became very critical of India. They started writing about all the negative aspects. Every society has negative aspects. But they dropped all the positive aspects, all the scientific developments, all the cultural developments, all the developments in language and grammar, Ayurveda, everything they dropped, and they focused on things like sati and caste system and all those things. In fact, a missionary society sponsored the visit of a lady, Catherine Mayo, to India, and she wrote a book totally condemning India. It was called Mother India. And this caused a huge reaction. Lala Lajpat Rai wrote a very scholarly reaction to this book. Swami Avedananda wrote a reaction to this. Those books are very readable. Unhappy India and Father India were the reaction to these books, this book of Catherine Mayo. So I thought it's time to rediscover India. Nehru had written Discovery of India. Nehru had his own slant about India, subscribing to the Aryan migration theory and all that. And thereafter, Nehru's legacy was carried on by Indian writers like Romila Thapar and Irfan Habib, who were given patronage by Nehru. And so, starting from 1857, our knowledge of our history went on a totally different track. I was reading a book called Hunting People, and in that was an account by the author of the Australian Aborigines, and these Aborigines had a very unusual system of disposal of the dead. It was cremation, and I lost my PowerPoint today, therefore I am speaking off the cuff. Otherwise, I would have really shown you the exact quote from that book that the system of cremation of these Aborigines was more or less same as the system of cremation of the Hindus. They made the funeral pyre in the same fashion, and then they set it alight. But the most amazing part of it is that
when the pyre was half burnt, one relative poked the skull of the dead body, which is done even today in India. And these Australian Aborigines, it is believed that they migrated from India, but the estimates of their migration vary from 25,000 to 40,000 years ago. Now, do we conclude from this similarity that it is coincidental that it developed on two continents at the same time? Or we think that these Aborigines migrated 25,000 years ago, and at that time we had the same ritual of cremation of the dead and poking the half-burnt body with a stick, what we call Kapal Kriya in North India. So this set me thinking that perhaps the timelines are faulty and things seem to be much, much older. Then I started studying the ancient American civilizations, the Aztecs, Mayas, Incas, and other lesser civilizations in that area. And again, I found that a lot of things were quite similar. For example, when these conquistadors they destroyed the ancient civilizations, some of them were perhaps very enlightened people, and they asked the local artists to make sketches of the daily life of these people because they were more or less completely obliterated. So these codices drawn at that time, just after the time of the conquest, one of them shows a marriage scene. And in the marriage scene among the Aztecs, the boy and the girl are sitting, the parents of boys and girls are sitting, there's some food stuff, there is a fire burning. But the most interesting part of the picture is that the garments of the boy and the girl have been tied in a knot. Now, this is a very typical Indian tradition, Hindu tradition, where the garments of the bride and the groom are tied in a knot. So I studied a little more on this, and I found that many things in the two cultures were quite similar. An artifact has been found which is like what we depict as a multi-headed Sheshnag. It looks like that. But more interesting than that was some words with the same meaning. For example, we have Indra, that is the ruler of heaven. And he holds a thunderbolt, a Vajra, in his hand. And the Aztecs has a deity called Tlaloc. And Tlaloc is also the ruler of heaven, and he also holds a thunderbolt in his hand. But the name Indra and Tlaloc are nowhere near. These two names are nowhere near. But then I found that one of the synonyms of Indra is Trilokraj. This Trilok word, we know that in many languages, particularly in China, etc., Ra becomes La. Maybe it was the case with some of the Aztecs also. So Trilok easily becomes Tlalok, and it comes very close. Subsequently, I have written a paper. I wrote a paper on this issue, or later on I wrote a paper on a goddess, which is in Aztecs was called Chentico. And I found that 10, 12, more than 10 attributes of Chentico are similar to that of Chandika in India. And the name Chentico and Chandika also become very close. Similarly, among the Incas, I found that the very word Inca, the Incas were worshippers of the sun. Their main deity was sun. And in Sanskrit is sun, Surya. So if you say Incant, it means Suryakant. And Inca will be born of the sun. And that's what the Incas said, that they were born from the sun. And there's the lake, a big lake in partly in Peru and partly in the neighboring country, which is called Lake Titicaca. And there was a legend among the Incas that if a dead person in ancient times, if a dead person fell in this lake, he'll come out alive. Sort of, the lake was made of embryos or something. We found that in Ramayana, you have Raman taking Ram and Lakshman to Patal. And Patal is one of the underworlds. There are 7 underworlds in Indian mythology, and Patal is one of them. And many scholars believe that Patal referred to the Americas, because many descriptions of Patal are quite similar to that of the American continents. So Ahiraman had created 3 cities in the Patal, and one was in sky, one was on earth, and one was underwater. So these were called Tripur, and in fact Shiva destroyed Tripur Rakshas, who was associated with Tripurs, and so he's called Tripurari. So I found that in our mythology also, when there was a battle between Shiva and the denizens of Tripur, this Ahiraman created a lake. He had an architect called Maydanav. So May created a lake, and in which the dead Danavs will fall and come out alive. So the myth in Inca mythology and Indian mythology again becomes the same. Similarly, from the Maya culture, I found that there are many associations which can be identified with May Danav. In fact, in pre-Columbian America, there was no trace of iron. They were a Bronze Age culture, but some pieces, some artifacts of iron have been found in Maya culture. And these Tripurari's 3 cities, Tripur's 3 cities, one was in heaven and one was on earth, one was below at sea level or under the sea. So Incas were very high. They lived at about 10,000 feet, and Aztecs lived at say about 6,000 feet, 5 to 6,000 feet, and Mayas were at sea level. The city in the heaven was said to be made of gold, and lower city was said to be made of silver, and the bottom city was said to be made of iron. Now, Incas are famous for their gold, and Aztecs were famous for their silver. And bit of iron has been found among the Mayas. So all these things, again, maybe sheer coincidence, but too many pieces are falling into place. So similarly, I found that in the Rig Veda, there was a tribe called Panis, and Panis were traders. And like traders elsewhere, anywhere else, they were not liked by the Rigvedic people. And in fact, there was some kind of a fighting between the Panis and the Rigvedic people, and the Panis migrated to the west. Now, scholars have been thinking that some of these characteristics of Panis are the same as that of Phoenicians who were there in the Mediterranean region, certainly to the west of India. And Phoenicians were traders. And so I did some research on that, and recently I published a paper where many things about Phoenicians and Panis were in common. For example, Panis were accomplished carpenters, and Phoenicians were also known as the best carpenters in that region. And the reason was that traders need ships, and unless you are a good carpenter, you can't really make ships, and those days ships were made of all wood. And so it fits into the thing that the trading community will have to have good knowledge of carpentry. So many similarities have been found between Panis and Phoenicians, and I couldn't find initially a name Pani in Mediterranean region, but then I found that on the island of Sardinia there is a place called Pani Lorega, and that is associated with Phoenicians. And many other things of Sardinia again fit into the story, like there's a Sardinian blessing, may you live for 100 years. And uh, in India also, we used to say that may you live for 100 years. A very minor thing, but it still falls into the story. The vertical oven, the so-called tandoor, we think it has come from the West, but the oldest example of vertical oven have been found in Rajasthan. And Sardinia, these Pani Lorega had vertical ovens. So there are many things which were falling into place. Uh, Similarly, in a subsequent study, I found that the Rigvedic goddess Usha and the Egyptian goddess Isis, names are also quite similar, Isis and Usha, and they had many common characteristics. I found about 15 common characteristics between Isis and Usha. So it does appear that Indians, whether they were called Panis or whatever, the Panish word has been linked to Vanik, the word used for trading community in India, and perhaps they had a link with the development of Jain religion also, because the Rigvedi people called a tribe Nagnas, the ones who did not wear cloth, and the Jain religion is associated with that habit. So Panis were perhaps the trading community of India for a long time and have continued into this. In fact, in South India, the word for money is Panam, and Panam, some believe, is related to Pani, the word Pani. So uh, all these associations do show that number one, Indians have been trading for a very long time. Traces of Indian timber, exclusively Indian teak, have been found in Egypt and in Mesopotamia. This such good teak wood did not grow there, and perhaps it is believed that when ships grew old, ships were made of teak, and when they grew old, they were dismantled, and the wood was used in buildings in Egypt as well as in Mesopotamia. I've published another paper where an Egyptian goddess Hathor has been associated with the Indian goddess, and there are several similarities between the two. So similarly, the Ashwins, the twin horse deities, find their parallel in ancient European mythology, in Roman and Greek mythology, in terms of Discorai. I have also found a lot of similarities between the Celts, who were there in Ireland and parts of Britain, and who were finally obliterated by the Romans. And their priestly class was more or less similar. In fact, books have been written on the conjecture whether their priestly class, called Druids, were Brahmins. And there are a lot of similarities between their rituals and the Stonehenge, which was created in ancient Britain, is connected with some astronomical events. So all these things do indicate that the world was more united, more in contact than we really believe. Even in very ancient times, people have been traveling all over the world, sometimes by accident, sometimes by design, and they have been sharing cultural traits. We all know about the presence of Indian culture in Southeast Asia, but that is understood because we traded with Southeast Asia, and some of our rulers spread Buddhism in that area. There are some traces in China because again Buddhism was sent to China, and along with that went there. But with Mediterranean, with ancient Egypt, with ancient Mesopotamia, with the Celts, with the Norse people, and with the American civilizations, this link needs a deeper study because there is enough evidence that they were in contact. Now, having said that, those who want to write on such subjects, I have a few words of caution for them because what one finds that sometimes we try to stretch things, and that gives us a bad name, and people laugh at us. Now, for example, this business of flying aeroplanes. Now, one person who was appointed as some kind of an advisor to the government, he picked up some text and said that there were aeroplanes and they flew with engines made from mercury vapor. The engines used mercury vapor for propulsion. Uh, well, it may be true, it may not be true, but we do not have enough evidence. The antiquity of that book called Viman Shastra is doubtful, and a lot of books were written in India in the Mughal period under Mughal influence. Some of the additions and annotations to Puranas were done under Mughal influence. And the best example is a Puran called Bhavishya Purana. The Bhavishya Puran says that the Islam religion is better than Hindu religion. So we know under what influence it could have been written. My request is that those who want to research on this in this area, they must find authentic information. There is enough. We don't lack it. There is enough authentic information, and then we should not fall into the confusion of who gave to whom. India gave this to the whole world, and that. I think it was sharing. When we are in contact with another culture, we give them a lot and they give us also. So it's always sharing. A thing goes from India to Egypt, it is further developed, it comes back to India, then something is added to it. And from Indus Valley times, we have been trading with Egypt. There is enough evidence. I mentioned in one of my papers. We have been trading with Mesopotamia. Again, there is enough evidence. But who gave to whom is perhaps not a very good approach. It is cultural, technological diffusion which takes place between two cultures, and both. It's a movement both sides. Uh, then it is known that view from distance is better. So when foreigners say something, we should not ignore that. I have heard some people say that we don't need a certificate from anybody outside India. I don't think that is correct approach. We have been receiving knowledge from all over the world. Ano Bhadra Kratavo Yantu Vishwatah, Rigved says that let good thoughts come to us from all sides. We don't believe in barriers, and that's why this diffusion was there. If there were barriers, this diffusion would not have been there. Subsequently, due to some invasion influence, we made it prohibited Indians from leaving our shores, and that was an aberration. But our original system has been of travel, meeting, getting knowledge from all over the world, and diffusion of culture and technology. Uh, then the existing work should always be incorporated. Whatever has been done, we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And merely because some Italian has written, one of my papers has been published in an Italian journal, and Italians have been doing a lot of research. This journal, Indologica Taurinensia, is published from Purin, and a lot of people there are working on Indology. So again, walls is not our system. We say Vasudev Kutumbakam. We say the whole world is our a part, our family. We say Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. We pray for happiness of everyone. So barriers and walls distract from truth, because ultimately we are a monistic belief system. We don't believe in two, there is only one. And interestingly, writers like Abul Fazl, who wrote Ain Akbari, he said two things in Ain Akbari. One, he said Hindus are not idolaters. He did not like Hindus, by the way. He was asked by Akbar to translate Upanishads, etc. And he hated that task and he made a mess of it. And he himself writes that Akbar told him, Haramkhor, what have you done? So he did not like Hindus or Hinduism, but still he says Hindus are not idolaters. These idols are for focusing, for helping on us to concentrate. But ultimately, when you reach a particular rung of the ladder, you don't need any idols and they don't believe. And
Rashidji,
yes.
you may please conclude in the next 2 minutes now.
Okay. So lastly, last point that we should be careful about is that if there are any apparent contradictions, they must be explained. We should not brush them under the carpet. There is an explanation. Whatever I have read of our culture, religion, history, contradiction is because of a misunderstanding or a faulty interpretation. Otherwise, it's a very, very harmonious system of thought. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And grateful to you, sir, for taking out time. We appreciate that you had to battle a bit because you had a certain design to make the presentation. But it's absolutely fantastic, as I said, that we are all in the family. We are all listening each other's stories and trying to pick up some good lessons. Now, I think the one major lesson that I have picked up, and I believe my other colleagues will also agree, that from the experience of Shri Aryan Parashar, you find that he's an avid reader. He has read a lot. And then he has written it. And I'm sure that the two steps have brought him all that clarity that he's able to express. And therefore, now a request. And the request is, believe you me, sir, what you were telling us, majority of us, and if you are 72, I'm also 72 sitting in front of you. So believe you me, all that you have spoken, for me, I didn't have any idea about all these things and the kind of evidence that you have gathered and you have published. Request therefore is that please republish what you have published earlier. You know, as the time has gone by, I mean, people like you who have been the single man army of their time, they have done so much of work, they have published it, but I would say वो एक कहावत है ना कि सत्संग लगातार बार बार होना चाहिए, वो तभी जिंदा रहता है. तो इसलिए आप इस सत्संग को बढ़ाने के लिए जो आपने पब्लिश किया हुआ है, प्लीज सेंड मी दोज आर्टिकल्स. एंड वी आर इन अ डिफरेंट वर्ल्ड नाउ. आपके वक्त में तो आपको किसी एडिटर को देखने की जरूरत पड़ती होगी, लेकिन अब तो सोशल मीडिया है जी. And fortunately, in our community also, there has been a very positive response. We have the portals which can easily publish that now. And I would say that all the work that you have done, let's take it to more people. And it is from there that it will inspire others now. So, and I would also suggest to all my friends who are on the call at the moment, I came across one documentary that is called The Story of India. It is about 6 to 8 parts. And if you just watch the first part of it, no, it gives so much power to Indians. No? When I was a director, I used to show to my students that, okay, please watch it. So, but nevertheless, we noted that I call you Parashar ji, that that our culture was to have good thoughts, but over the years there is a civilizational shift that has taken place. When you talk about before Christ, the ages, no, I mean, even I would say before Chanakya, no, it was the fight between the right and the wrong. But after that, it has been the fight between mine and others. No. Second thing, the new strategy of the people is कि अगर किसी लाइन को छोटा करना है तो पुरानी थी कि अपनी लाइन लंबी कर दो, लेकिन नई स्ट्रेटजी ये है कि दूसरे की लाइन को मिटा दो, उसको छोटा कर दो, उसको बता दो कि मैं सुपीरियर हूं, तुम इंफीरियर हो. As a result of that, the challenge that we have now is definitely beyond those good old days. No, I mean, 21st century is a different century and its challenges are different, and I do hope that we as a community are going to respond to it. Just say in your presentation, sir, you use the word mythology a number of times. No, okay? There is a young man, he's in California. He has created a new word in the dictionary that's called satology. And he says satology is the opposite of mythology. He challenges the West by saying that your dictionary has this word mythology, but there is a word called satology, and you people are painting everything that we have about India under that mythology. So I fully appreciate your positive accommodation and being part of the, the globe that we are. But I would definitely say that let's see that the years in which we live now are very different. The value system that we had in this country in the olden days is very different. Our challenges are very different. The kind of misinformation, the kind of propaganda, and the kind of, I would say, supported by the governments. It is not just the individuals. There are religious organizations, there are cultural organizations, there are government organizations, no, who support this kind of thing. And I tell you, you may recall, you heard that dismantling global. There was a conference held here in US, dismantling global Hindutva. Now, the problem was that Hindus are great as long as they come, they cooperate, they work with others. But once you assert your political strength, you are not acceptable. So the time in which we are at the moment, the challenge is that we have to regain our political position also. We didn't have the challenge. I mean, before Christ, we didn't have the challenge because it was Hinduism, Hinduism, Hinduism. And therefore the fight was between right and wrong. But over the last 2000 years, you have seen there are various kind of new forces which have come up, and these forces are specially determined to put you down, because if they want to create their own space, they want वो जो line आपकी है उसको या मिटा दिया जाए या छोटा कर दिया जाए. Somebody made a statement, sir, that if Islam was so good to us, क्या वहां पर जगह हिंदुस्तान में कम थी मस्जिदें बनाने की? मंदिर को तोड़कर मस्जिद क्यों बनाई गई? एंड दिस हैज बीन सेड बाय एन एक्स मुस्लिम. वो आजकल काफी न्यूज में है, मुझे उनका नाम ध्यान नहीं है, लेकिन उन्होंने ये खुद कहा है कि मैं एक सवाल पूछना चाहता हूं कि जब मुगल यहां पर आए हिंदुस्तान में, तो क्या जगह की कमी थी मस्जिदें बनाने की? क्या जरूरत थी मंदिर को तोड़कर मस्जिद बनाने की? This is a psychology of assertion. You want to assert कि मैं बॉस हूं, मैं पावरफुल हूं. तो इस वक्त जिस हम स्थिति में हैं, जिस सिचुएशन में हैं, I think we have got to take a stand that we are no less. We had a great history. आपने जैसे कहा कि हमारी हिस्ट्री तो it has the roots and it can be seen all over the world. I live in US at the moment. I interact with here the American Indians. And believe you me, उनका खाना पाना शक्ल बात वैल्यूज बिल्कुल वही हैं जो हमारी हैं. एक बार गाड़ी में जाते हुए introduced myself to somebody that I teach at UCSD. The lady told me, you are very bad people. I said कि I teach at UCSD. She said you are very bad people because जब ये यूनिवर्सिटी बनी थी तो जो हमारे बुजुर्ग थे उनकी हड्डियां निकली थी, वो हड्डियां आपने हमको वापस नहीं दी। अब मैं तो एक एडजंक्ट फैकल्टी हूं, मैं किडमे से हूं यूसीएसडी में, लेकिन उसकी बात सुनकर मुझे समझ आई कि ये जो वैल्यू सिस्टम है कि अपने बुजुर्गों का करना, उनकी हड्डियों की कदर करना, ये उनमें भी उतना ही है जितना हम में है। तो आई वुड से दैट you have brought lot of expense to us, and your approach is very helpful, and the point you have made is that we should remain referable and verifiable. कोई ओवर स्ट्रेच करने की जरूरत नहीं है। किसी ने ओवर स्ट्रेच किया है, दैट इज समबडीज गुड लक, लेकिन हमें जो जवाब देना है, दिस हैज गॉट टू बी रेफरेबल, वेरीफाइबल, ताकि उसकी क्रेडिबिलिटी बनी रहे। आई होप दैट वाज द मैसेज, एंड इफ यू वांट टू ऐड समथिंग मोर टू दिस, maybe a minute or two you can take.
Thank you very much. All I would say is that I have read Quran from cover to cover, and there are a lot of problems with that holy book. And this destruction of temples is not incidental. Islam is not merely a religion; it's a political ideology. And the Quran is full of that political ideology part. And in fact, it has been stated very explicitly that the Muslims should try to convince others of the true religion, so-called true religion. But otherwise, then they forfeit their rights. So similarly, they're not allowed to lead their religion. In India, parallel religions have grown, Buddhism, Jainism, etc. So there's a fundamental difference between the two, and we don't have to emulate the bad things of anyone. We have to, when we say Ano Bhadra Kato Yantu Vishata, it is the Bhadra, the good things which have to come to us, and we incorporate them. It is certainly true that, in fact, the PowerPoint which I lost because of my computer, I was calling it the rediscovery of India, and this country and our roots in some ways have to be rediscovered. We have forgotten a lot of things, and our next generation, we owe it to that next generation. Tagore once said that you do not inherit from your ancestors; you borrow it from your children. So that borrowed thing we have to give with interest back to our children, and that should be our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm able to see that there's a hand raised by Bina. So I think Bina ji, like rapid fire. अगले 2-1 मिनट में आप मैसेज दीजिए।
I just wanted to request Mr. Parashar ji if he can send his PowerPoint to you, or you can share with us so we can get proper idea. It's really wonderful topic. It's for centuries we are talking about it here. Our generation is not getting into the core of it, and that's what you brought to us, that comparison.
Very good, very good. I second it, and I think everybody thirds it, fourths it. तो सर आप भेज दीजिए हमें, and we'll
as soon as I can
don't mind doing
open
that,
my laptop, I'll do that.
That would be a great favor for us, and we will try to do whatever we can do, because we are also totally not there, because we also born after freedom and after this thing. So whatever we went through in our culture, distortion in the Mughal period and before that. So thank you. वो याद आ रहा है जहाँ डाल डाल पर सोने की चिड़िया करती थी बसेरा.
I think one of the points that, thanks very much, Dr. Parashar. This is very illuminating talk that you have given us. I guess what I found it interesting was your association of various events, and that piece you have highlighted. And obviously your presentation would have quite a few examples where we can see the association of, let's say, our previous historical names to what has been followed in the other parts of the world. So the question that we have to ask, did things migrated from India, or did things came to India? So, I mean, both ways is possible. So we have to ask that question. And Dr. Parashar already pointed out, mythology. I think we have to stop using this word ourselves. We should not be saying it's mythology because mythology is mithya. So we ourselves are saying it's mithya. No, it's not mithya. It's our fact. It's our reality. Is the word would be psychology or whatever we want to use. So we have to be pretty forceful about some of those things. So.
I would just say that even in science, as I said, I'm a physics man, I taught physics. There is a hypothesis and then it becomes a theory. So we let us see how much scientific evidence we can pile on what we know and what is written in our scriptures. Because again, I had once written a paper that there was a writer called Dandi, and Dandi prescribed what all should be there in a book before it can be called a Mahakavya. And one of the things he prescribed was called Vakrokti, and Vakrokti is oblique speech. So oblique speech was part of Indian writing tradition. We did not write it straight away. We said in one way, then it has to be interpreted. And I published a paper on this theme that this oblique speech was prescribed so that we interpret, and there is freedom to interpret, and there is freedom to have multiple interpretations, and there is freedom to have diversity of opinion and freedom of difference of opinion. So that is why this oblique speech was adopted. So when we say mythology, it means that it is still in oblique speech and it has to be interpreted and facts have to be culled out of it and scientific explanations are all there, but they prescribe that it should be oblique speech so that you have the freedom of interpretation.
I would wish that people appreciate the context in which the oblique speech is, because unfortunately today, they will pick up a word and they will play that word against us. So, the context is great and we should do that, no? That and actually that's our culture. We are open to interpretation. We are open to discussion. Our whole literature is question answer. So is absolutely, it's a great culture, but in the process, there are people who stretch that freedom of interpretation, to the level that they point out that we are just make believe kind of people, no, the snake charmers and living on the trees and those kind of things, no. So it is there that I think the spirit is that to be, actually, I don't know. It may become a. I'm writing a paper on this. The way our literature has been organized, Vedas, Puranas, Samhitas. No, those people were great minds. They have clearly divided that when they talk about the Vedic time, no person. It's the God and the nature. Is when the Puranas come that they talk about the people. So that's a kind of history which they try to bring it out. Of course, the evolution as it has been captured, say for that matter in Bhagavad, no, is not the terminology that is known to the modern generation, and therefore we don't believe it, no. And the easiest thing to call it is that it's all mythology, no. So I would simply say that the request which has been made is that let's also be careful that we are not misinterpreted or misused our words, no. That's the spirit in which it is said, no. Well, I think we are dot on time. We have spent an hour and 30 minutes. I appreciate the presence of all of you, and I think you all join me in saying our hearty thanks to Shri Aryan Parashar ji. My interaction occurred with him only recently, and that also happened because of writing. I write, he write, and we got connected.
I thought you guys are brothers.
Yeah, that must be, but वो मेले में छूट गए थे, अब कहीं मिले हैं. तो मेरी इनसे मुलाकात ज्यादा 6 महीने पुरानी होगी, 6 भी नहीं है, 3-4 महीने पुरानी है, जब आपने मेरा कहीं नोट देखा, आपने मुझे भेजा और फिर पता लगा कि आप लिखते हैं, and then we got together into this, no. And I saw your work, it has a depth. तो मैंने कहा चलिए हमारे जो सब दोस्त लोग इसमें इंटरेस्ट ले रहे हैं, it was very beneficial. It was very, very beneficial. The main decision that we have taken today is that we will have a group who will devise how to go about reviewing the history books as they are published by the NCRT to begin with. I mean, this project can expand gradually further on, but at our level, what we can do is that we'll begin that. And there are some 5, 6 people who have already given their name. I will also try to share these. And I could see again here, Sudhirji, are you there, my friend?
Yes.
So you have listened everything, and I would say that it all started between two of us. So you kindly spend a little more time on this and kindly help this group to do that. In addition to whatever you guys are doing is very good. Whatever little help I'm able to give you with my comments or connecting you with certain publishing portals, that will continue. And I think you must be happy so far with me that I reply in 24 hours. Is there anyone who says no, 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 no? You are a lazy person. You sit on our mails. No, I try to reply in 24 hours. So I would request that let's continue the spirit in which we have joined, and we will meet 2 weeks from now, and let's stay in touch in between. What we can. So can I conclude with this meeting?
Can I ask just one question very quickly
Yes.
to Mr. Aryan Parashar? Do you agree that we need to revise our history books, mainly for 6th, 7th, and 8th standards?
I mentioned two names, Irfan Habib and Romila Thapar, who were patronized by Nehru, and they really distorted our. Irfan Habib was chairman of the NCRT, and so all the textbooks were molded under his control. There is obviously and clearly a need to rewrite the history. There are a lot of positive characters in Hindu history which do not find any mention. There are a lot of negative characters which find a lot of undeserved praise. And in fact, renaming of Aurangzeb Road in Delhi was one of the corrective actions this government took after a very long time. So I totally agree with you that the school history books have to be rewritten, and from an Indian perspective, and not from, they have so far been written by somebody who believed that strengthening of Hinduism is dangerous for India. And so we have to correct that.
Thank you very much.
It was for them, dangerous for them. No? All right, my friends. Thank you very much. Of course, it's about an hour and 35 minutes. We are overshooting by 5 minutes. You have your other engagements. With this,